Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I have now learned that the Eisenhower Fellows play hard and work hard. So great time last night. I hope everyone had as much fun as I did and have enjoyed the last few days as much as I have. It's been really fantastic. So we're at the finish line. So it is my honor to introduce the Vice Chair of the Eisenhower Fellows, Christy Todd Whitman. Christy.
Thanks, Kathleen. And congratulations to all of you who made it up this morning. I realize it was 9 o'clock and that was sort of aspirational, but we're doing all right. And I hope everybody has had as wonderful and invigorating and exciting a time as I have over these last 3 days. But I want to start by thanking the EF staff for the incredible work that they have done. Aaron, George, everyone. And of course, our co-hosts. They've just been the Spanish Fellows and the Jordanian Fellows have been amazing. And I want to thank them. And I also want to thank the staff of this hotel because they have put up with a lot. They've had to redo things, redo rooms and everything, and they've done a splendid job. So thank you to everyone at the hotel for all that they have done. So we're ending up on a really high note. This is the opportunity to see who has come in, the top 3 projects. I hope everyone voted from the iLabs. You went to those iLabs. They were extraordinary, and that you were able to figure it out. And if you couldn't figure it out the way I couldn't figure it out on my iPhone, I went to the tech experts and got it done. But we're going to hear from the 3 highest vote getters from the iLabs. And this is really the essence of Eisenhower Fellowship. You know, it's great to have the personal experience. It's an extraordinary opportunity individually for people. But what really makes Eisenhower special is what you take back and do that changes the world. That's what we're about, is changing the world. And sometimes it can seem a little lonely or frustrated when you think it's a one-by-one thing, but that's what does it. It's the cumulative impact of individual behavior, and these individuals together, Eisenhower Fellows, are truly, truly making a difference and have. And when you hear from these 3 projects, and I don't even know who the winners are, when you hear from these 3 projects, I know from the ones that I heard yesterday, you will know that there's a pretty good future waiting for us out there. We've just got to take hold of it and dedicate ourselves to doing it. And so when you go back with all the enthusiasm that you got in these 3 days and the commitment to do things, don't let it slide. Keep it up, keep that intensity. Let's keep this kind of momentum going, because that's what makes Eisenhower stand out to the rest of the world. And that's what we're about. In the name of Dwight David Eisenhower, an incredible president, an incredible world leader who was able to keep the peace and understood the importance of that and understood that it only happens when people to people get involved. Now I'd like to turn it back to Kathleen, who is going to tell us who the winners are, and we're going to hear from them. They will present each for 7 minutes and then 7 minutes of Q&A. So, Kathleen?
Christy, thanks a billion. And I do know who the 3 winners are. And I'm going to introduce the first is Vishal from India. Brilliant. Come on up here, Vishal. So as Christy said, Vishal's going to speak for 7 minutes, and he's got a short presentation. And then we're going to do a quick Q&A for 7 minutes, which I will facilitate. So,
sure.
Vishal?
Okay, I think I'm.
Oh, you're mic'd. Perfect.
Yes, thank you.
I'll get out of your way.
All right, good morning, everyone. I must have done this like hundreds of times, but I still get butterflies every time I do this. Over the last 2 days, 3 things have become clear to me. One, that everyone, whether they like it or not, will need to be an entrepreneur. Second, we all have to work towards scenario 3 that Jerome spoke about. And if you do want to get to scenario 3, then we are talking about nearly 3 billion people being self-employed. And how are we going to achieve that? When you look at the top suggestions that Jerome made, the top 3 suggestions were all related to education. That we focus more on higher intelligence, we move from just attaining professional skills to a combination of other skills which will help us become successful, and education mindset shift towards self-actualization, move beyond STEM to self-inquiry. Now, what's heartening for me is that over the last 18 years of having run Dream a Dream, a nonprofit back in India, we've focused on these things. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Are you going to move the slides from there? All right, thank you. A lens that I want to bring into the conversation, in addition to the lens that we have heard over the last few days, and maybe possibly even outside this room, we all know that the pace of change in the world is increasingly frantic, almost violent. Every 5 years, there's massive change happening, and we're all seeing it, and we're all worried about how we are prepared as adults to embrace this change, but more importantly, how are we preparing our young people to embrace this change? There's another lens which is more pertinent to young people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Young people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, in early years of their childhood, experience adversity. Adversity could be different kinds. It could be lack of food and nutrition, lack of emotional love and care, being abandoned, being orphaned, in extreme cases, exposure to abuse, violence. Now, when that happens, it impacts development. It impacts children's ability to achieve developmental milestones at the right time period. And from there on, it's a losing battle. A child who's experienced violence in early childhood cannot be expected to have healthy social relationships as an adult. There's research which says 9 out of 10 individuals who have experienced early childhood abuse are likely to have mental health challenges. 9 out of 10. A combination of adversity leading to failure to thrive or stunted growth, plus entering a world which is fast changing, unpredictable, complex, leads to a whole lot of issues related to being unprepared for life. Which is why in India today, 50% of the kids drop out of school by grade 5. Kids in grade 5 and grade 7 are unable to read and do basic mathematics at grade 2 level. 90% of the Indian working economy still works in the informal sector. But the real challenge of all this is really coming from not looking at adversity. If you don't actually engage with the problem of adversity, any quick fix solutions that we are all doing with education, with employment, with internships, with vocational training is only going to have limited impact. This is what we discovered. Why we exist? So we designed our thinking around how do we overcome this challenge. We exist to help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to overcome adversity and to flourish in this new world using a creative life skills approach. We don't call it success. We want our kids to grow up and thrive and flourish and contribute back to their society, to their communities, to their neighborhoods, to their families. Now, I grew up in a relatively poor family back in India, and education failed me, honestly. I was a top ranker through school and university. But if you ask me anything of my physics or chemistry or biology, I don't remember. But what worked for me was access to a group of mentors, access to a set of life experiences that got me to where I am today. So life didn't fail me. I started Dream a Dream in '99. One of our earliest graduates is this young woman, Pavitra. She came to us when she was 14. Her father was in debt, had run away from home. She suddenly became the breadwinner. No one was giving her a job. She dropped out of school. Said, I need an internship. I need a job. I need to do something with my life. She's 27 today. She runs our career program for 5,000 adolescents every year. She manages a team of 15 people. She's today fighting new battles around gender roles in the workspace and in her community and in her family. The man right in the middle is Ravana in the white shirt holding the cup. I met him when he was 10, run away from home, living in a shelter home for runaway boys. Went through a series of programs with us over 8 years. Today he manages a school-based program for 5,000 kids, manages a team of 39 people. And the boys that you see there, they're all boys that he's worked with. So my story has now got translated into 2 change makers who are now creating impact in their communities. They are thriving, they are flourishing in their communities. Those boys, one of them at the extreme right corner, my right, is Vishnu, who's actually one of the young leaders in this program today. This is a group of young people that we have worked with. What are we saying here? These are young people who are bold, who are unapologetic about their identities, who own their stories of poverty, own their stories of struggle, and they're proud of who they are and who they become and who they want to be. Each of these young people today are creating impact in their respective communities. Anita, the girl in the middle, was the first girl who fought her family, fought family pressure, neighborhood pressure, school pressure, to start playing football when she was in grade 8. She was the first girl to play football in her community. Today she's a certified coach. And her dream is to build a girls' football team in the community, which she has done. One of the girls there has just recently gone for state-level selections for the football team. This is the 3rd level of generation now that's becoming a change maker. Now, one of the girls who got selected to be a state-level football player, she said, I want to go back into my community and get girls out of their homes to play football. So she built a team of 16 girls who play football 3 times a week now. She went home to home convincing their families that girls should be playing football. Girls should have their own identities. She's the 3rd generation of Changemaker in 17 years. How did this happen? We discovered there's only one thing that made it work: the presence of a caring, empathetic adult. We all know, and we've all had kids, we've been around kids. When kids are growing up, they go through life up and down. They get closer to an adult, they move away from an adult. They get frustrated, they're unsure, they're confused, they're confident. This is how the kids growing up years are. What helps this kid go through this with confidence is when you have a presence of a rock-solid adult. And what does that mean? An adult who brings care, empathy, trust, validation, creativity, safety, and being non-judgmental. And we've all seen that. When we've done that with our kids have thrived. So when we discovered this, we said, how do we now unlock empathy in an entire generation of adults that work with young people? So this led to a strategy that we are now working on. We directly work with 10,000 young people in the city of Bangalore every year. This is our innovation hub. This is where we bring in new pedagogical approaches, deepen our life skills approach, deepen empathy-based approaches. This is where research is happening, learning is happening, that we are then giving out to the sector today. Over the last 17 years, over 20 organizations in India have adopted our model and started delivering life skills programs. We said, how do we replicate this? Now, replicating a direct delivery model where the cost of delivering a program for one child is about $50 to $60 a year is very high. Imagine taking that to 140 million children. Not possible. So we needed to find a replicable model, which is where the teacher came in. We said the teacher is one of the key influencers in a child's life. If we can unlock empathy in the teacher, if we can help the teacher become that rock-solid straight line, we don't need to solve the problem, the teachers will solve the problem. Over the last 4 years of piloting this program, we worked with now about 4,000 teachers, impacting about 100,000 kids. Over the next 4 years, we want to take this to 15,000 teachers, impact about 500,000 kids. Still not enough. We have to create change in the system. We have to influence the government. We have to build a movement. We have to improve the work around this. A lot of work around understanding child adversity is very new in the world. Most traditional approaches in education continue to focus on fixing the problem of academic outcomes. And we've seen that over the last 2 days, that's not working because we're entering a very new world. So we're investing in research, we're publishing research. Is that time up? We're publishing research, we're building a movement of stakeholders. We're going to the top 100 CEOs in India and saying, you need to talk about the crisis of education. Because when you talk, the government will listen. So we're pushing, 50% of the top CEOs in India have said, fresh graduates are unemployable. They do not have the skills to be employed. So they're retraining them. We're saying, why are you doing that? We have an education system that needs fixing. Talk about it. And thirdly, we're building an ecosystem of organizations. Today we've got a network of 100 organizations in India and globally, which are working on empathy-based pedagogies, life skills approaches to learning. We're increasing this network. Over the next 5 years, we want to take this to a network of 500 organizations, school leaders, teachers, who will then start taking this voice to the government so we can really start reimagining education. And that's possible because finally, it's about mindset change. We are stuck in an old mindset. How many of us, the minute a kid is born in our family, start thinking about which school my kid will go to? Or do we really ask the question saying, what kind of education my kid should have? We need to start asking a very different set of questions of education. And when we start doing that, we'll create mindset change. And we're hoping this system, or this approach, over the next 20 years, is going to impact 300 million children in India and change the way education is looked at in India. And that's what we're gunning for. In 20 years, Dream wants to become irrelevant, redundant, non-existent, because we have solved the problem. Thank you.
That takes a lot of courage to say that you want to be irrelevant. I think that's really amazing. So I would love to open this up to questions. So we've got 7 minutes for questions. Who has a question?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Will from New Zealand. Obviously incredibly impressed. What are the top 3 challenges and how can the fellowship help?
Okay, thank you for that question. Top 3 challenges. The topmost challenge with any kind of change is mindsets. How do we change mindsets? Right? We're all sitting on we're all used to the old game with the old rules. The old game and the old rules are no longer working. We need to rethink. We need to move into the new game. Imagine, for example, if you are a rugby player and you're prepared to be a rugby player all your life, you're dressed up, you walk into the rugby field wanting to perform, you enter the field and suddenly you see no one's wearing any rugby gear, they're wearing shorts and the shoes are different and they're actually playing football. The game has changed. So mindset change. So how do we as a community of Eisenhower Fellows start raising issues of education in our circle of influence? We have to build the voice. So it's not about my project, it's about children. How do we start building that voice, start building that crisis so people listen and change? The second, to take this movement forward, we need access to governments, researchers, academicians, so we can actually improve and increase the body of knowledge around understanding child adversity and what approaches are needed to transform education. So we ourselves are looking for partnerships with universities, research agencies, academicians. In India specifically, we're looking at partnerships with governments. Third, funding. Just to do what we are doing at Dream a Dream, over the next 5 years to work with 500,000 children requires about $3 million. That's it. That's it for 500,000 children. It doesn't take a lot of money to reimagine education. These are the three things. Thank you. Yes. Here, Catherine.
Over your time, excuse me, over your time doing this work, what's been the biggest surprise that you've encountered?
That's a great question. The biggest surprise, and there have been many, but I think the one that I remember is that young people actually don't need us. Young people across the world are embracing the new world with or without us. They're showing agency, they're showing empathy, they're showing kindness, they're showing resilience across the board, across communities, mainstream communities, disadvantaged communities. The best thing we can do as adults, because we actually cannot anymore predict the future for them, is step out of the way. Let young people take charge. Because they know they're embracing this new world, they're learning, and they're more nimble than us. And that's what we're discovering, even with young people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. The number of young people today in our program who have become self-employed and entrepreneurs, we didn't plan that. We don't have an entrepreneurship program. But they had the life skills, and they used those life skills to make sense of the world and respond to the world in the best way they could. And that's been a surprise for us. Almost makes you feel like irrelevant already.
Brilliant. Last question.
Good morning. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiration. I'm curious about what role parents play in this work. You've talked about childhood trauma, adversity. How do you help parents understand what holds their kids back? And more importantly, how do you help them get out of the way so their kids can move forward?
Yeah, great question. For Dream a Dream, this has been a weak area. We had to make a choice at an organizational level to be strategic. When we realized we had to now create a replicable model and start working with adults, the two stakeholders we put on the board was parents and teachers. We did a pilot for a year, and we realized purely from operational reasons, we were unable to reach out to parents. 100% of the parents that we work with are daily wage laborers, informal markets, single parents. So even for them to commit a day to us meant loss of wages. So we found that market to be more difficult to reach out and access. So we chose to put that in the back burner for a while and started focusing on teachers because we had easier access to teachers. We could build a narrative around why it's important to invest in teachers because they're working with groups of children over a period of time. And we could actually then showcase transformation in teachers. We have not left out the parents. This year, Ravana, one of the young men I spoke about, he is now taken on saying, I want to develop a program for parents. So he started running pilots in some communities, and we're beginning to see what happens with that. But there are other organizations that partner with us that work exclusively with parents. So they've taken our pedagogy and then integrated it into their work with parents. Yeah, thank you.
So the question is, you have a website that has a donate button.
Yes.
How much for one child each year?
Sorry?
How much did you say it costs to provide services to one child?
So it's about, what, $50 per child in the direct program. But if you want to support the work with teachers, it's $5. Yes. .org. Yeah, dreamandream.org. Thank you, Ted.
Vishal, really inspiring story.
Oh, thanks, Rasha.
Your organization run as a charity. I understand it's run as a charity. Do you have any plans to make it like a for-profit social enterprise, or do you encourage children emerging from there or youth emerging to become social entrepreneurs?
Okay, so
For-profit social entrepreneurs.
Sorry. Yeah, great. So let me answer the second question first. We don't encourage young people to be anything. We give them a set of skills. They choose what they want to be. It's their journey. To give an example, we worked with a young person for 4 years, alcoholic at the age of 14. Didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. For 4 years, he must have done 20 different vocational training programs, till he finally figured out that he could combine all his training and become an entrepreneur, offering home-based services to clients, because he had done 20 different vocational training in plumbing and carpentry and appliance repair and mobile repair. But it took him 4 years to, one, get out of alcohol. He's been off alcohol for a year now, and to discover who he was. So we invested in helping young people find their identities. I know it takes time, it's long-term, but that's what it is. It's a long-term investment. There is no quick fix. Okay? So we don't. If some of these young people do end up becoming entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, that's their choice. However, because of the role modeling they get from Dream a Dream, they all do become empathetic adults, which is what's important. We don't want to add more consumers to the world. If you want to build thriving communities, if you want to achieve scenario 3, we need more empathetic adults. To answer your first question, no, we don't want to become a social enterprise. One is because it doesn't take a lot of money to create the kind of impact we want to create. Over the last 20 years, India has thrived. There have been more wealthy people in India. There have been more wealthy people across the world. At an ideological level, I believe it's important for people to invest in philanthropy, to invest in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in the children. So it's important that they look at it beyond just profit motives. We have to start looking beyond that. So we are going to be a philanthropy, unless there's no philanthropy money in the future, which I doubt. I think there's one more question there. I don't know if you have to.
Next one. Vishal, I know you've got a jet,
Sorry.
and we've run out of time.
Oh, okay.
And I want to present you with
Thank
this. You are an inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
That was amazing. All right, next up, we've got Hari and Anu. Come up. Join me up here. So our second winner, and they're going to tell you about what they're doing.
We want to take some risk and so real-world products in live.
Let's make it work first.
Thank you.
Do you see it?
No.
No?
Let's try again.
It worked. We have tested. So we trust.
No problem. It will start. It will start. It's there.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. Thank you.
Very good.
So I'm Harri Ketamo, this year's fellow.
I'm Anu Pastirauste, 2014 Innovation Fellow.
And we are from HEDAI. HEDAI is an artificial intelligence company developing cognitive AI that basically learns from natural language. And that enables our AI to perform tasks that typically requires human kind of thinking, like dealing with meanings, not just matching some words, but understanding meanings.
All right. Imagine you have a teacher educating 100,000 students with the same or even better outcomes that we can have with the current setups. We know this education, there is a huge gap. It's a big and complex problem. And we can solve this problem and scale up the one teacher with the power of AI. We are not replacing the teacher, but we are maximizing the potential.
So in other words, one teacher scaling for 100,000 students. It means that we can get closer to solve the global problem, how we can find teacher for 1 billion people looking for education.
Imagine then a researcher, you are a researcher, and you would have hundreds, thousands, assistants looking there, relevant materials, meaningful articles for you, being ready to go in your research. And that's existing there.
So once again, we can scale one researcher or resources of one researcher to do the work that requires 100 or maybe 1,000 researchers to do.
Being there 24/7, on demand, and exactly with the cost of one assistant. Thirdly, imagine you woke up this morning and you would have your personal career coaching there with tens of tasks, activities, ready for you locally or globally to start with. Like the picture we heard and saw yesterday in Jerome's presentation.
So in my profile, I can see that in the green areas, there might be gigs or tasks or assignments for me. And in the red areas, there is absolutely nothing for me. But we need my profile that can be found either from my CV or open data. And we also need job descriptions that can be found also from open data or from our partners' archives. Currently, we have partners in Finland. And we skip this because we have discussed with this. Bigger picture. Matching jobs and education is very important for individual point of view. But from business point of view, we have an example from Finland. RoboCoast is an association for automation and robotic companies in Finland. There are some 100 or 200 members in it. But the idea is that they have very good descriptions on their processes, what they are doing, what kind of challenges they can solve with their technologies, what kind of skills they are looking, and so on. And our technology is matching their data into other archives, like Finnish Entrepreneurs Association archives, in order to find subcontractors or cooperators for different operations. All this RoboCoast data can be used if somebody abroad, let's say a company abroad, wants to find a Finnish partner. They just paste their problem into the AI, and it can show out in what areas company can help them and what companies might help to solve the whole problem. Also the recruitment, the connections to university, all is similar kind of matching the data and showing up, visualizing the connections between your needs and the offering out there.
And this is already existing in Finland. Again, we are looking for partners to make it a global solution.
So in general, our approach is REST API, that's a geeky term, but meaning it's an interface that is integratable to existing systems. We are not producing new interfaces, new systems, but we want to bring an AI, a cognitive AI, for any operation that requires meaning-based matching, meaning-based understanding. And right now, we are looking for partners all over the world to take some of our ideas in use, or who wants to develop some new idea with us using our technology. So we have already some 20,000 users in Finland. There are products in real use, but now we want to scale this global, and for that, we need partners.
And science behind is about 10 years, and our education profiles goes back to 20 years.
Yeah.
Are we there?
We are there. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Excellent. So, Jim, I owe you a question. Would you like to ask a question to this team? Not to put you on the spot. So, questions.
30 seconds.
There.
I am Sridhar from India. Very impressive presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See, my organization feeds about 1.6 million children every day, 14,000 schools.
That's amazing.
Right?
First of all, congratulations.
And if we have to scale up this program, you will have to think of ways to connect the unconnected.
Yeah.
Because if I recollect, your program will work well where internet connectivity is there. But there are millions of children across the world where there are no internet connections. So if you have to scale it up to reach, let's take 1 billion children, then you need to look at ways how we can connect the unconnected.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on this front? And it's a very nice model to scale it up, this one and Vishal's model, actually.
Yeah, thank you. Very relevant question. To the 1 billion people looking for skills-based education, it is the total number about adults who are looking for longer or short-term education to keep their job or find a new job. And in addition, the kids who needs the education. And so this billion is not kids. Only some 300 million of them are kids, and only 100 million of them don't have school at all. But the numbers in general are 1 billion. And to the second question, yes, we can't solve the problems when somebody don't have a network connections. We are very much aware. But we hope we can still bring this now at this point for at least half of the population, maybe 60%, and hope that somebody else solves the problems of connectivity and the devices. We can't do that.
Yeah. But again, what we want to provide is the affordable solution, and then scale up the quality education for those ones who don't have the educators, they're the teachers, and that's also a huge problem.
Yeah, I would say that we can't find more teachers today, no matter if it is K-12 education or vocational, because all the teachers are there, or maybe there are not enough resources to recruit teachers. But I would say that maybe not the only, but the most promising way is to scale the current teachers to educate more people. For example, in Finland, I would say that we have that good teachers in Finland that they could educate way more people than we are educating right now in Finland.
That was the example what we have there. That was the augmented teacher.
Yeah, the first slide, I put it back. Not slide, but the product.
No, yeah, the product.
Yeah, these are Finnish higher education teachers who wanted to also have an AI-based bot about themselves to scale their education. So they are teachers, they educate, but they also establish a bot for themselves who is 24/7 for educating.
All right. Mary Kate over here has a question.
Yes. Thank you. Fantastic idea. I really, really love it.
Thank you.
I tried to do something similar and failed, so I think that's probably why I'm so excited to see that it is possible to do. What I'd like to know is, from my own experience, I found it really limiting with data sets. So we were only looking at open source data when we were trying to build something like this. I'd love to know how you have used the open source data, but also when you're asking about partnerships, are you focusing on like private data sources, or how are you going to grow with the limitations of the data sets?
Yeah, that's also very relevant. First of all, most of our demonstration use only open data, but then we have partnership products where we use also data from our partners. And in that sense, in all the AI that is based on training data sets, the data is a crucial fuel. And open data is enough into some extent. For example, if we are modeling the curriculums in higher education or vocational education, the open curriculums are pretty good source to really model what's happening there. The company web pages are very good source to understand what the company does in general, and maybe help the company to match into some other company who is either in the area or potential subcontractor. But it's not good enough to understand what kind of skills and competencies the company needs. So the web-based information doesn't need to uncover the skills and competence need in the companies. For that, we need their own data. Right. And we start with open, we have partnerships, and all the data we have, it's owned by its original owner. So we don't share anybody else's data, even though the original owner wants. So in that sense, we are growing the data sets, but there are big challenges, big, let's say, issues we have to also tackle. So I really feel your pain.
And last question here.
Hi, I'm Kathy Richardson from Australia, 2014 fellow. The organisation that I work with builds software for social change organisations, and one of the things that we're doing is trying to embed some of the tools for social change into the software to promote better practices. We're dabbling now in a little bit of AI type stuff, and one of the things that we're really struggling with is to be conscious of replicating some of the biases in society into the AI. There's lots of stuff being written and spoken about now about gender biases, for example, and all sorts of other unconscious biases that are being built into these technologies. Is this something that you've thought about or grappled with in your building?
This is a, well, wide question. I wonder here and there around it. But first of all, our AI, as any other, is narrow. Even though it's quite clever, it's narrow, and it's doing exactly what we want to do, so we can train it later. If we find some challenges, we just retrain it. And so we don't want to replicate or get stuck into that we have to follow a certain process, or absolutely, we know everything that happens inside our AI. It's not going to establish its own language. Yeah. We call it bug. Somebody else calls that they are creative. But yeah, we control it.
Yeah. Again, we are not replacing people, human people. We are there making us smarter and helping
we are
us
just
in
scaling.
those intelligent tasks. Good.
Okay, my name is Wael. What other fields and potential that your technology can serve in different areas and fields like security, science? Is there any examples that you've already done on these fields?
Yeah, besides these, we are already in healthcare, scaling the doctors, for example, not replacing, scaling. In security side, we can imagine that this can be used for soft security, but the security is a bit different. So we are dealing with fuzzy set, but definitely recovering something we can't see as a human.
Yeah. Here you saw our education verticals, our workforce development, and then the recruitment.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And a gift.
Beautiful.
And I love when a real-time demo works.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu.
Thank you, Katri.
All right, fantastic. So now we are up to our final presentation. And this one is going to take us into the digital forest. So give it up.
Hello? 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 Hello, good morning. Yes, I'm also with the butterfly, someone said. So, it's not working? So about a month ago, Brazil posted that they were going to open a huge biological reserve area in the Amazon. They are going to open it for mining. And that outraged not only the Brazilians, but the whole world. But, and just by the way, they decided not to do it anymore, okay? But if we think about why they did it, and we try to take a little bit of passion out of it, I can even understand. So, if you have an economical crisis and you don't have enough technology, how are you going to make more money out of your resources? Using old technology and using low technology and using the commodities that you have, okay? Unsustainable economy, it's very strong financially. So logging in the Amazon, it's a $2 billion a year business. Meat, it's a $5 billion a year business. Mining, it's a $9 billion a year business. If we look at the sustainable uses using low tech that we can have on the forest, they are always small business. Like Brazilian nuts, extraction of Brazilian nuts, $50 million a year. Ecotourism, $100 million a year. Even acai berries that you may have tasted in the US because it's the main market, it's $500 million a year. So what we realized is that we are never going to be able to make the sustainable uses of forest competitive if we use these low-tech approaches. On the other hand, if we use high-tech approaches to create, for example, medicine, then we can create high aggregate value products that can compete with the unsustainable economy. The average revenue of a medicine, it's around $600 million a year. But the blockbusters, like Captopril, which is a blood pressure control medicine that was discovered in the snake, in the poison of a Brazilian snake, alone has a revenue of $5 billion a year. So only one medicine can compete with the entire meat market from Brazil. So to create these high-tech solutions, we created the Digital Forest, which is a platform to speed up, to accelerate the discovery and the development of these high-value, aggregate, sustainable products. The idea is that instead of those traditional uses of land, we can just take in one leaf, sequence the genome of these plants, make a huge data bank that can be accessible to everyone, and create products that can lead to, that can address markets as variable as water treatment, biofuels, medicine, cosmetics, and energy. I'm going to show you a very brief video that tries to explain very fast what we do. Can you try to press play, please? It's not going. Okay, the video is on the, it's on the iLab page, posted there. You can see it afterwards. The first product that came out of the Digital Forest, it's an enzyme that can convert a residue of orange juice, of the orange juice industry, an oil that it's on the skin of the orange, into a perfume. So Brazil is the biggest producer of orange juice in the world. I'm sorry for those from Florida. It's not Florida. It's not Spain. And, well, you know, like we used to be the best ones in soccer, and we usually like to say, oh, we are the best on this and the best on that. Now the Germans got us, you know. So we found this enzyme that can convert a terpene, a chemical compound that has very low aggregate value. It's worth $2 a kilo. And it's usually used as a solvent, into a building block for the cosmetic industry, a compound that it's worth $10 a kilo. So it's still inside a test tube, but we can aggregate 5 times the value of the original compound just by processing it in the same way that we make wine or beer. So it's a yeast that can work in a tank and makes this conversion. Curiously, our partner on this, it's a mining company, right? So like, the mining companies, they have a lot of rural real estate. And many of these areas in Brazil are primary forest. And they are very expensive to maintain. It costs about $2 million a year just to keep the boundaries, you know, to prevent people from invade, just security. But this guy said, okay, we need to make money out of this forest. We don't want to make it the original way, otherwise there will be no forest anymore. And then we came out with this partnership. So it was easy from this mining group to go to the orange juice producers and create this partnership that was on the front page of the most important Brazilian newspaper. And in a way, the connection of this project with future of work is represented by these two guys. So this is in the reserve in the state of São Paulo, the Atlantic Forest, one of the most important, the most biodiverse ecosystem in the world. So on the right you have Miguel. Miguel is first generation of traditional community that has lived in the forest for many, many years. And the other is Ricardo. He is a master student from the University of São Paulo. Both of them have an amazing knowledge of botany. Miguel, without ever being at school, knows everything about all these trees. And Ricardo, having studied a lot, knows also a lot about those trees. The thing about a project like the Digital Forest is that it's in the information economy. And you cannot develop these high-tech products without knowledge. And the big challenge, even for Brazil now, it's producing 15,000 PhDs a year. Even though we have less scientists than the average in the world, we are trying to keep up and producing a lot. But still, there's no traditional educational system that can educate someone like Miguel very fast from where he used to be to a scientist, to have a PhD. So we are trying to do it by putting these two together and, you know, one helping the other, we can get Miguel to become a PhD. And why do we need PhDs? Because if we look at the production of innovation in the world, the one single variable that can explain why some countries like US, Japan produces 5 times more innovation than the average, it's because they have 5 times more scientists per inhabitants than the average. The average is 1,000 scientists per 1 million inhabitants. Brazil has 500, and these 5 countries, they have 5,000 PhDs per 1 million inhabitants. So we are trying to get everyone together and give them a kind of out of the traditional system PhD so they can help us create this knowledge that we need. And this image, it's, well, first of all, to say that sometimes it's very hard to collect these samples. So this is the top of a centenary tree. I went to pick up the DNA of an orchid that only grows in the top of this tree. And it was registered by the National Geographic photographer Luciano Candizani, because the idea was to give the micro effect, you know, something that it's in the DNA, it's very hard to illustrate, and the greatness of the forest behind it. And I wanted to use this image to show how we can, that we can, and we have to scale up this project globally. Okay? So for example, and how do we do that? Of course with partnerships, but which kind of partnerships? So yesterday, Maria told me, let's bring this project to Tanzania. So we can sequence forests from Tanzania and put it on the data bank. And then we can take a product, I don't know, a market in, let's say, Germany, Switzerland, and they say, okay, I start up from these countries. They say, okay, we have a problem here. We want to look for the solution in the Brazilian biodiversity, or in the Tanzania biodiversity, or in the Asian biodiversity, and we are going to develop this solution here. Okay, you can do that. So the way to scale up this project is by bringing other forests to the data bank and by connecting with other startups that can develop the solutions for the different markets. Because one startup is never going to be able to solve all the problems. There would be no point on that. Okay? And how the Eisenhowers can help us. So in my final presentation in 2014, I said that in a risky project, when you can't reduce the risk of your project because of the risky nature of it, you have to build trust. How do we build trust? We build trust with commitment. So also in the iLab page, you can find a short version of our business model canvas with different value propositions from philanthropists to investors, from other entrepreneurs to scientists. And there are always one kind of commitment that we can make to this project that is going to help build trust. That's it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Excellent. Questions?
I'm going to broaden the question I tried to ask a little earlier because it's about metrics and how do we measure this stuff. EF right now, I was going to ask about what's success look like for Dream a Dream and what's your, you don't bat 1,000, you don't have 100% success with those 10,000 children. They're metrics that we apply, and part of the strategic plan that we have for Eisenhower Fellowships, and this, I'm going to ask the same question you asked, is what can Eisenhower Fellowships, this room, do for EF? Just as Brazil has bet that creating PhDs, good things come of that. We've done the same thing with, if we have fellows, good things will come of that. The next step of that, though, is measuring what are those good things and what's the impact. And I ask everybody in the room, in terms of everybody in the room, to think in terms of helping EF, in terms of defining what our impact is. As you know, certainly the fellows of the last year or two, we ask you to have us undertake a specific project. And part of that's, what does success look like? Using Martine Bert's question, what does success look like? How do we measure it? How do we know when we're successful? How do we know to what degree we're successful? So anyway, that's my question for the room and to each of the panelists. And how do you know when you've been successful? How do you know how you could be even more successful? Thank you.
Okay. There are several metrics that we can use here. From the number of species that we sequence and that are inside of the forest, of the digital forest, from the number of startups that are developing products, for the number of clients that are hiring development of products, from the number of formal PhDs or informal PhDs that have been educated inside of the system, to the number of partners with farms or forests that have species that wanted their species to be there. There are, depending on the value proposition that you are interested, we can find a different metrics. But I think it's all about the scale. What we have here is a scalable business model. And this it can go on. It can grow exponentially. And we can use those metrics, for example, that I mentioned as a way to see how the reach that it has reached, how far it has reached.
Question here?
Kia ora, Bernadine Vesta from New Zealand. The question that I want to ask is, you talked about Miguel and his knowledge, and that knowledge arrives as part of the intellectual property of an Indigenous community.
Yes.
Have you thought about how the communities who are part of this ecosystem can sustainably benefit, not just Miguel,
yes,
but the whole community, from the intellectual property that resides in their lands?
Yes. So Brazil is one of the first countries to have a legislation on the access to biodiversity. And these legislations guarantee that a percentage of each product that is created from the Brazilian biodiversity is shared with the traditional communities. So there are different ways to do it. One is to make a direct contract with the traditional population, which is the case of this specific project. So inside this reserve, there is a traditional population living there, and the mining company has a contract of benefit sharing with this traditional population. If you don't have a contract like this, then there is a fund, a kind of a national fund that your company has to contribute with. I'm not sure, it can vary from it's around 1% of the revenue of the product. And this is according to the Brazilian legislation. If your country doesn't have a specific legislation, then you can follow the Nagoya Protocol, which is from the United Nations that based on the Convention of Biological Diversity, tries to help countries not only develop, gives some kind of baselines, of guidelines to create your own relationship with the traditional communities.
All right, final question over here.
Wonderful progress you've made. Have you patented any of this, and who owns the patent?
Sorry, who owns?
Have you patented any of the outcomes from this research?
Not yet. No, you cannot patent the DNA sequences. Okay, those like used to be able to patent in the US, but not even in the US anymore. And I really don't think, I think that the DNA sequences now are commodities. Okay, we just have to sequence all of them and put in the data bank. The intellectual property is not in the DNA sequence anymore. It's on those who have the knowledge. It's the Miguels and the Ricardos and the Mauros that can create the solutions out of it, right? So we are partnering with people already. Like Wael helped me make the video that you didn't see. We are going to use Haris and Anu artificial intelligence to dig on all those DNA sequences to try to get, to mine it and to get the value out of it that the artificial intelligence can get, so the Miguels and the Ricardos can create their products out of there. And it's in this creation and the process that the intellectual property lies, and because we are still in the test tube, we didn't patent anything yet.
All right, fantastic. Give it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right, so interesting fact, 120 of you voted over the last couple days on these iLab projects. Those were the top 3, and we have one winner of this. The winner gets 2 round-trip tickets to Philadelphia for the May event, and I wonder if they actually put the name in here. It's like the Oscars. I hope I'm not Faye Dunaway, who says the wrong person. Or no, that was Warren Beatty, wasn't it? And it doesn't say who the winner is, but thank God I know. So, and it's the Digital Forest. Come on up.
I will try very hard not to cry, okay? Those who saw me in Philadelphia knows that I cry a lot. So I'll try very hard not to cry. Look, I'm extremely happy. I was so blessed with my experience in the fellowship. I have been trying since then not only to participate as much as I can from the events, but also to succeed as in a way to give you guys the metrics that you want. And we all... like we know that in the end, yes, there are many metrics that can help, my investors, my partners, but to help you guys is, yes, this guy succeeded, and this is a huge step on this way. Thank you all very much.
Wow, that's good TV. So we've come to the end of our journey, and I want to thank all of you for allowing me to be part of it. I think that you have such an amazing organization, and you have a friend for life. So I add my thank you to George for bringing me here. This has really been quite amazing. So I want to add one reflection that I thought was interesting. Jim had mentioned it to me yesterday, that Pedro had put a challenge forth of what is EF for the future. And Jim was wringing his hands a little bit like, wow, that was quite a challenge. How do we figure it out? And you know what? You already have it figured out. This is an amazing organization. You've done the Youth Fellows, which I think are your key. And they're going to tell you what you need to be next to be relevant. And they told you yesterday. And you are so relevant. This is the most amazing organization, and you're very lucky to be part of it. And I'm very lucky to be here. So, George, I'm going to give up the floor to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I had to jot down all these notes. I have a lot of reflections and a lot of people to thank today. First, congratulations to Mauro and all our iLab winners. Vishan, Anu, Hadi. Wow. Wow. Let's give them a hand. You'll notice, though, that Mauro couldn't do it without Anu and Hadi, and without the collaboration of other fellows. Fantastic projects with real impact, and I saw a lot of other great iLab projects as well. A great outcome of this amazing week. Let's give them all a big hand, all our presenters. And now we come to the end, which of course is only the beginning. I'm pleased to just report to you that our global conference generated more than 30,000 Twitter impressions over the last 2 days, trending #1 on Twitter in Malaga. Another 13,000 people followed us on Facebook. So our impact extended beyond the walls of this hotel. Now our challenge is to ensure that we channel the energy and the intellectual firepower that we've seen on display here these last few days to maximize our impact going forward. I'm delighted to report to you that we formed a working group of fellows to explore the critical migrant identity issue that Arvind Gupta mentioned yesterday, and to see how EF might come together to address that. I'm also pleased to share with you that I'm going to be going to Washington to meet with Jerome next month to take a look at how we might harness EF's formidable collective intelligence. These are just two of the ideas that emerged from our time in Malaga, along with our iLabs. In the coming months, we'll also build on the momentum we've generated here with 2 special fall programs, this year and next, to advance the work that began here this week. In just a couple of weeks, we'll be welcoming to Philadelphia 20 outstanding fellows from our Middle East and South Asia program. They will include our largest cohort of fellows from the Middle East since 2005, and for the first time, Eisenhower fellows from Qatar and Myanmar. Next fall in 2018, EF is excited to host our second innovation program, flowing from this dynamic gathering in Malaga and from the work of many of our recent fellows. The Fall 28 program will focus on 5 sectors of innovation where EF can concentrate its work and maximize our impact. One is the future of work, including artificial intelligence and many of the challenges we've discussed here this week. The second is the related field of innovation and education, including lifelong learning. Third is health and life sciences, a field exploding with new possibilities. Fourth is energy and the environment, keys to sustainable development around the world. And fifth is design, the field that ties all these themes together, design of new systems. This is what helps drive all sorts of innovation in the 21st century. We have heard all of these talked about this week, and Jerome personally discussed all of them in some depth. So aside from their inherent importance, part of the reason we're focusing on these areas is that it will help us create several cohorts of fellows within the program itself who can connect with each other and with our other fellows in our global network for dynamic collaborations on projects with real impact. We'll be asking for your help in identifying our fellows around the world who are working in these same 5 areas to help us create new sub-networks and communities of interest within EF that we can then link with other leaders in their fields. In the process, creating new partnerships and expanding our existing networks while extending our strategic footprint as an organization of diverse, dynamic doers. Yesterday afternoon, I was corralled by the members of our original innovation program of 2014. 14 of them, of the 22 fellows in that class, have been here with us in Malaga, which is pretty amazing. So they grabbed me and literally pulled me over to their table yesterday, and they said, you know what, we want to interact in a big way with the fellows from next year. And so we kicked it around a little bit, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to have them join next fall's class in San Francisco, and then spend the weekend retreat with them in Arizona to accelerate next fall's class of innovation fellows, to accelerate their engagement with our network and hook them up with other innovators. So how cool is that? And the best thing, like so many of our best ideas, it came from the fellows. A lot of times I think my job is just get out of the way. And if next year will be marked by innovation, it will also herald an important milestone in the history of our organization. As you know, General Powell will step down in May after 12 years of dedicated service as our chairman. He will be succeeded by another highly respected global leader, Robert Gates, who served 8 American presidents of both parties, including as defense secretary in the cabinets of President George W. Bush and Barack Obama, the only American who has ever served as defense secretary for 2 consecutive presidents of different parties. We will be honoring General Powell with a special celebration of his service next May 16th. Put that date down, at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. And welcoming Secretary Gates as our new chairman the following day on May 17th at our annual meeting and awards dinner. So I really would like you all to save those dates and plan to be with us in Philadelphia as we send off General Powell in style and thank him for his selfless service to EF and welcome our new chairman for a new era, Secretary Gates. So next year is all about looking forward and building on our formidable foundation to keep taking this remarkable organization into the future. We've had a glimpse into that future this week. It goes without saying that a tremendous amount of work has gone into the planning of this conference. EF's first major global gathering in 8 years, and the largest outside the U.S. in our history. We've had important contributions from too many people to mention. But before we leave, I'd like to mention just a few. To our gracious hosts, Mayor Francisco de la Torre, Mayor Paco, our friend, to the city of Malaga, to Club Malaga Valley, and to our Spanish and Jordanian fellows, led by Javier Cremades and Omar Al-Jazi. Thank you for your warm hospitality and for your leadership. There you are. To our honorary chairman of this conference, His Majesty King Felipe VI of Spain, and to Her Majesty Princess Wisdan F. Al-Hashemi, thank you for your support. Where is she? Behind the scenes, Diane Shoemaker and the Future of Work Steering Committee of Fellows have worked tirelessly for many months with Stephanie Gropp, our Senior Director of Finance and Administration, and our EF team from Philadelphia. Steph and our EF colleagues wrestled every tiny detail to the ground and made sure the trains ran on time all week. I'd like to please have stand Monica Steigerwald, Colette Seidel, Romana Lee Akiyama, and Vicky O'Rourke. They were joined here in Malaga by our program officer, Kelly Johnson, who has coordinated our work on our exciting new engagement technology with Salesforce, represented here by Justin Edelstein, who made the iLink a reality. Thank you. Let's give them a hand, too. Thank you. Our EF team has worked closely with our colleagues here in Spain, Miguel Larios, Ana Garcia Oliveros, and Teodora Toma at Crevades y Calvo Sotelo in Madrid, with Khalil Bitar and his colleagues in Malaga, and with Cheyenne Mahmoud, Irina Branescu, Ana Maria Vieru, and their team at Icon 7. Let's give them a hand. Cheyenne and his team put together our beautiful program guides and other materials for our participants and handled our social media, just as they did at our EF Regional South Asia Conference in Dubai a few months ago. Look for their Malaga post-conference digital reports to be coming to you soon. We also want to thank our friends at the City of Malaga, Macarena Regueira, with whom we've worked very closely, at the Gran Hotel Miramar, Francisco Salcines, and at the AC Malaga Palacio, Paula Sena. Thank you. But all of this incredible hard work came under the skilled guidance and leadership of our extraordinary Vice President, Aaron Hillman. What we saw this week in Malaga is a wonderful testament to Erin's enormous talent, her sterling judgment, and her sheer perseverance and persistence. If you liked the program as much as I did, thank Erin. She was the driving force in putting this together. I mentioned the opening morning how gratified we were to be represented by so many of our current and former trustees, but the two more former trustees are here with us whom I didn't mention, Donald de Butler and Jack Golden from Ireland. To them and all of our current and former trustees, thank you very much. To all of our colleagues and to all of our sponsors, our distinguished, fabulous speakers, and our media partners, thank you. To our magnificent MC, the inimitable Kathleen Kennedy. Thank you for expertly framing this complex subject and leading an excellent discussion. For many months, before owning the stage and herding cats these last few days, Kathleen has worked closely with Aaron and our other colleagues to help convene an unforgettable gathering. Let's give her another hand. Thank you. And to my beautiful wife, Carrie, who stepped up big time this week when we had an unexpected urgent need for expert help in setting up our complicated audiovisual technology. Thank you. Carrie rolled up her sleeves and went to work to make sure you can see and hear this conference smoothly. She wasn't on duty this morning, but we're all in your debt. But then again, I already am, and I always will be. So Finally, to all of you, our fellows, our guests, and our new youth leaders, thank you for traveling from so far away to be here with us for this exhilarating event. You, our fellows, are the reason we exist. You are the beating heart of this organization that we all cherish. Mil gracias, 1,000 thanks. Before we conclude, I'd like to leave you with some lasting memories of the magic we made in Malaga. Please play the video. As Christy said, the cumulative power of individual action. Adios, my friends. Safe home. We'll see you next year in Philadelphia. Thank you.